Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 4. In today's weapon review, we're taking a close look at the CZ-805 all-rounder assault rifle. We're getting to finding out whether or not this weapon is any good, when to use it, how to most effectively use it, and of course how it compares to some of the best all-rounder weapons in the game, such as the M416 and ACE-23. Now, it's good to be back in Battlefield 4 to have some proper, fully automatic weapons at one's disposal once more, which is partially why today we're going to be reviewing the CZ-805. The other reason is because it's been requested by Renegade Cooler, so quick shout out to you. Hope I'm able to answer all your questions regarding the capabilities of this weapon and, of course, how it stacks up to the stiff competition. With that being said, let's get in straight into the stats of the CZ-805. It's an assault rifle and as such has a maximum damage standard of 24.5 and a minimum damage of 18. Its fire rate is respectable on the lower end though, if I may say so, at 700 rounds per minute. Paired with a standard magazine size at 30+1. This all seems a very mediocre average assault rifle setup. We move then on down to reload times, which are on the slow-ish end with a short reload at 2.65 seconds and a long reload at 3.4 seconds. You may get caught in close quarters with this reload. It is, however, not too bad to the point where it is constantly a noticeable weakness of this weapon. Recoil is on the lower side with the CZ-805, of course, given its lower fire rate. This is no surprise, with a vertical recoil of 0.29 degrees, a recoil or pull to the left of 0.1, and a pull to the right of 0.22. Its first shot recoil multiplier at 2.1 is definitely noticeable, yet not to the point where it's kind of in the way of tap firing or burst firing at longer ranges. The ADS is standard for an assault rifle with an 0.2 ADS value and a 3.5 hipfire while standing and moving value. Now, with the stats being run down, what does this mean? How do they compare to something like an ACE-23, an M416, or maybe even a Aug A3? Now, side by side, at least in my opinion, you can't really take a CZ-805 over an ACE-23 or M416, at least not in the most of the situations that I tend to use these guns. The fire rate is just a little bit too low and gets me killed quite frequently in close quarter. The reload isn't exactly flattering and doesn't help to compensate for it, and while it's got a good amount of vertical recoil and that's easily controllable, the recoil to the left and right doesn't really make up for its low fire rate. It still shakes just enough to make it difficult to use at extreme long ranges, especially when considering, of course, the first shot recoil multiplier, which does make extreme long range tap firing quite difficult, whereas medium range is fully functional. However, when comparing the CZ-805 to something like an ACE-23 or M416, one is not considering one factor. One can, of course, change the weapon's behavior very much with attachments, and I believe that much like an Aug A3, this weapon best performs with a heavy barrel. Its lower recoil allows it to use a heavy barrel relatively effectively when compared to an ACE-23 or M416, which become very difficult to control and therefore allow you to compensate a little bit for the lower rate of fire, at least in medium range, with higher degrees of accuracy. However, there is a caveat to this. The CZ-805 isn't quite as good as the Aug A3 when it comes to its heavy barrel appliance. Now, yes, the Aug A3 is slightly less accurate actually than the CZ-805, even after a heavy barrel. However, these differences are very small and in my opinion not noteworthy. What is noteworthy though is that the Aug A3 is a better gun for shooting while moving, for hip firing, has a slightly smaller first shot recoil and has slightly less recoil in general, and last but not least, and most importantly when it comes to recoil, much more equally spread recoil with 0.26 vertical, 0.22 to the left, and 0.17 to the right, meaning that the gun may shake back and forth a little bit. However, it doesn't really drift to one side. Now, that's not to say that the CZ-805 is a bad gun, especially with that combination of heavy barrel. And speaking, of course, of attachments, we should quickly cover them. Obviously, you're going to be wanting a optic. A Coyote red dot sight is my personal preference. Any red dot sight of your choice. I wouldn't recommend a higher magnification optic, however, it is doable on this weapon because the recoil isn't too hefty. Accessory is always a question of laser sight or not. Can you switch it off when getting into smoky situations or situations where it gives your position away? Yes or no, the choice is yours. Barrel attachments, I would actually go for a heavy barrel. In my opinion, I think it does make the weapon a little bit more competitive when compared to most of the assault rifles you're going to be meeting on the battlefield. Otherwise, maybe if you're going for close quarter, as I did in many clips today, you want to be using a suppressor. Underbarrel for me is going to be be an ergo grip. However, if you're struggling with that first shot recoil multiplier, especially in combination with the heavy barrel, making of course this slightly more difficult to control, you may want to slap on an angled foregrip. However, in my opinion, I usually run this gun with an ergo grip. So to summarize my findings regarding the CZ-805, it is a solid gun, but it can't really compete with some of the best in that class, be that the Ace-23, be that the M416, or the Aug A3 accuracy machine with a heavy barrel attached to it. In my opinion, it's worth trying out. Use it with a heavy barrel if you do. However, don't expect the world from it. You're probably better served with some of the known favorites in the Battlefield franchise. With all that being said, I hope I was able to provide some useful insight into the performance and comparative performance of the CZ-805. I hope I was able to answer your questions, Renegade Cooler, regarding the performance of the CZ-805. Feel free to share your experiences down below with this gun. Do you prefer to run this gun differently from me? Am I missing a key strengths of the CZ-805? Feel free to leave that all down below in the comments with, of course, your future video suggestions. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 4 video.